Good afternoon. You know, one of the things that when I go to these conferences and when I speak, usually somebody in the audience would say, "Mr. Mahooty, would you please stand up? We can't see you." And I said, "I'm standing up." You know, these other, my Indian brothers, they're taller than me, but when I go up to Sioux country, I told them one time, I said, they were harassing me. I said, "You better watch out, I'm the tallest Pueblo Indian." Those guys are about this tall. Anyway, I'm very informal. I always talk from the heart. I try to, the ET buddies told me lately that I spend too much time on scientific mathematical analysis, and so I think that I am trying to sort of stay away from that, but you can't get away because it's just part of the explanation process. And the ETs have, my buddies and from the Zetas have been saying to other people that I'm too much of an egomaniac. So, but that's the Heyoka type, you know, the way that we are in the group. There's a lot of Heyokas, or what they call the clown people, and we're the tricksters, and connecting all over. Usually those are the guys that have the information, and I talk at a lot of these places. He said, "Tell me who the biggest trickster is that's in the United States right now." And he actually looks like a clown. He's got orange hair. You know who that is? He's in the swamp. But anyway, my presentation today is when Daryl asked me some time back, and he talked about what's our presentation on going to be. I said, well, you know, 5 stages of man according to the Zuni background, and so I sort of put something together about 15 minutes ago. So basically what it is that, you know, you've heard about the Hopi, the Zuni, and other tribes talk about we're in the end of the fourth world. And that's been spoken of in many times over in other civilizations throughout the world. You know, I read Tolstoy a lot, or used to back in the old day, and his interpretation is that every civilization is 500 years long. So we're at the end of the 500 years of what is now America. Actually, America, this country is not the new world, it's the old world. And I've talked about this in many occasions. I'll be at the New Life Expo in San Francisco in the summer, and I talked about the expedition from Lemuria. And if you folks get a chance, check that out. So basically what it is that the creation myth, story, you know, facts become mythology. So basically the Zunis believe that in the old days, the archaeo natives was very, very basic human forms. And we went through the processes, and this is where Lemuria, Atlantis, and America comes into play. And then, of course, we go into the right after the Ice Age, and then the pre-Columbian to present, and then the future. So this is basically the 5 groups. But what I'm going to do today is talk about the Zuni People Connection with the truth. The reason that I'm doing this part of work is because I sat back. In my past life, or within the last 100 years, I was born last century. I was told that to somebody. They say, "Well, how old are you?" I say, "Well, I was born in the last century." And the century, I guess, automatically says, "You're over 100 years old?" So what I do at these presentations is that I interpret what I have been taught from my people, the Zuni people. Zuni people is in New Mexico. They used to be in the Southwest. We have a long history. We are perhaps the only tribe among the Southwest Indian tribes that were not captured by Christianity. The Hopis were the second group, but the rest of the other tribes around New Mexico, the 19 pueblos, were taken over by Christianity 400 or 500 years ago. So they lost a lot of their background, and Hopi and Zuni are basically the ones that are left that still practice their old world philosophy, traditions, and culture, and languages. Language is very important. So today I want to just go through some of the things that I had put together for this occasion, and my topic today is the Zuni Pueblo People Connection with the Truth. I work with many groups on the disclosure, and my brothers here, the Navajo brothers, we've decided last April that we're no longer going to hold back the truth, or at least what we had kind of limited ourselves to. We also work with, on the other extreme, with Corey Good and David Wilcock. We're all together at this time. So, but we also work with other groups independently. We do not belong to any group. We are all independents. I say that I belong to a fraternity. It's called GDI, Gamma Delta Iota. I said, well, what the hell does that stand for? I said, that's a goddamn individual. So this is the first slide that you see. This is a Kachina god, or a Kachina impersonator of the, you might say, the chief of all the Kachina society people. This is also the name of this particular god. His name is Pautiwa, and his full name is Pautiwa, which means blue water head Kachina. And what I was very interested in my research, this god or representation, the original one was like an alien. And he's also recorded in the Egyptians, and he's there with the first pharaoh of Egypt, and that's his name right next to that first pharaoh, and he's also quoted as Pautiwa in their history. When they first came to me and they asked me they're talking about a god of the Zuni and Acoma, because we're all related. So I researched it, and it's spelled the same way, it sounds the same way. So we have a lot of connection with all peoples in the world. There's many documentaries that we've done. One of them is Expedition to Sipapu, which we did about maybe 3-4 years ago, and that was also connecting with the Egyptian, the Muslim, and the American Indian. You can find that on YouTube. So this is a Kachina, and I'll go into that in more detail. Just to give you an idea of where I'm from, we're in the Four Corners area. Right here is Zuni, and here's this is what we call Zuni Heaven. And right here is the Zuni Salt Lake. We fought the state of Arizona for that about back in the 70s. And so up here is where the Navajo Rangers are from. Look how much area they have to cover. And right smack in the middle of somewhere is the Hopi Reservation. So that's where geographically all these other, the ones that I'm talking about are the Pueblo people here, and up there is the the Jicarilla and the Southern Ute, they call that. Down here is the Papago, or they call them Tohono, the Salt River tribes. And I was here last week over there at the Colorado River Indian tribe, the Chimoewas. So I have done a lot of research throughout many years. I mean, I've been doing this since I was about 10 years old. And this is basically what Zuni philosophy or the way that we have interpreted many things is that it's a universe. You know, up in the area is that we have the gods, which are basically the ethereal and benevolent beings. And that's just where the UFO, a lot of people think that UFOs are nuts and bolts. I think that they have been indoctrinated too much from Roswell. Of course, nobody really knows what was at Roswell. And of course, we know about the constellations because it's all in our religious and in our society groups. We also know about the galaxies. The society that I belong to is called the Milky Way Galaxy. And this is where the clown galaxy, the clown medicine society comes from. We make reference to the Milky Way Galaxy. And there's many other groups that are medicine orders that come from many different types of, or related to the beings from those systems. I have a son that belongs to a medicine order. It's the Fire Society. And they're also connected with the Paiute people that used to be around Utah and so on. So their songs are based off on the Paiute. There has been many, many interrelationships throughout time. And I think the archaeologists and anthropologists, ethnologists haven't done their homework thoroughly because they change their dates every time something is discovered. And they keep going back in time. We're talking not only thousands, but millions. And of course, we know about the planets. And also, this is what a lot of people are now coming to getting a handle on is the dark force people, the malevolent forces. And I think one of the biggest group right now on the dark forces is the United States Congress. And I say this with a lot of research. I just don't make these things up. And here's what it was really hard for me to interpret. The English dictionary doesn't have words in there that can interpret from the Zuni concepts into the interpretation into the English language. The English language is very limited. So for lack of a better word, we all know about magic, which is illusion. The Chris Angels of the world, the Copperfields of the world, even Houdini and others, they use illusion. But there are certain things that is way beyond that. When we talk about shadow people, we're talking about beings coming through solid concrete walls. That's not magic. It's something way beyond dimensional analysis. We're so used to being in the three-dimensional world, maybe say fourth dimension. And of course, right now we're dealing now with a multi-dimensional system. When we talk about going into the ninth dimension, I always bring up that little history says a lot about things, what's going to happen in the future. When I graduated from college in 1969, there was a group that was called the Fifth Dimension. Yeah. And guess what their famous song is? The Dawning of the Age of Aquarius. And there's certain things that happened at that time. Stanley Kubrick came out with 2001. Right after that, the United States government bought his television, and immediately after that was the moon landing. So if you study that in a very, very wide scale, and don't rather than looking for the trees in the forest. Look at the whole forest. And this is where I used to get into trouble a lot, because my training and my disciplines that I had to go through, and actually the science and engineering is actually just sort of like a side thing on my training. So when I talked about these things, I used to sit in physics, for example, and they would talk about a lot of things, and I sit in the back of the room and I say, we already know about that stuff, you know, but we did not know that they had taken a lot of things out of context. You know, just, you know, it's that whole story about the conquering nation is the one that makes the history. And more research that I have done throughout my whole years is that why did they relocate the Indians? The Trail of Tears comes into play. The taking away of the Indian lands and killing them, they couldn't kill them because they're spiritual people. And then the next thing was taking away the land to convert them into national parks. For example, Yellowstone, Grand Canyon. And these were now, if you go to Sedona right now, I live about 30 minutes from Sedona, and everywhere on the Indian reservation, for example, like Archuleta Mesa, you go to Albuquerque, that whole valley from all the way up to Crestone, remember that, where they talk about the cattle mutilations. Chris O'Brien is a good friend of mine, and we've discussed a lot of those things. And these are the stuff that we're not going to put out, that we had known for a number of years. And I've been talking like this for a long time. It's amazing I'm still alive. And so this is where we have all decided that from now on, because now it's a disclosure. There is absolutely no way that they can keep anything hidden anymore. There's three basic groups that I know of that's kept a lot of secrets, or so-called secrets. The one is the Vatican, Smithsonian Institution, and the Industrial Military Education Complex. And so I have studied this. I'm a C student. C students rule the world. And because we're the ones that always question. And the A students, you know, they go on to become, you remember that saying about those that can't do teach? So anyway, I'm not bad-mouthing the A students, but anyway. This is a connection that we have existed for thousands of years. This is the altar that was drawn by the Smithsonian in the 1880s. And this is the one that I belong to. This is the replica of the Milky Way galaxy, and of all the different star systems that are out there. This is the sun, of course, and these are the ones that are, these are swallows. They're the ones that, whether it's allegorical or what, when the ancient Zuni first came into from the underworld, remember that we came up from in this fourth world, we came up from the Grand Canyon. And these are the ones that taught us how to make babies. If you ever go and see swallows in their little nest on the cliff, you try to break them with your hand, you cannot do that. So these are some of the things, basic things that we still use today. These down here are transceivers. You know, it's a transmitter and a receiver at the same time. This is all crystal technology. The stuff you don't see over here is because they hid them from the white man. These are the crystals that have been brought, probably given them by the space people for communication. So actually we were very, very advanced. Other tribes were wiped out, but we still practice this today. You can see the replica of all the universe, the stars here, and this one are you might call the ether that comes from the essence that's throughout the whole universe, and this is the conscience that connects us with other beings. For example, the extraterrestrials, because we were put on here produce that type of thing. That's why there's a lot of abductions that go on since the beginning of time. I'll go into that with the Kachinas. And so this is basically what we still practice today. Now, what I have done many years is that I've just taken both the white man's science and the Indian teachings. And this is basically what we're at right now. In the beginning, spirituality and technology were one and the same. They separated them long time ago, and the reason that they separated them was that they had to have some way of control. And man invented religion. Religion is primarily for fear, control. And so this is why I learned quite recently that there's over 100,000 religions in the world. And there's some that are even being created right now. So that because that a lot of things had not worked, or they've been exposed, so they have to keep covering their butt up, and they're continuing to do that. Well, let me go back to that. I have always asked people, I tell them, so why do you think that the UFOs started appearing more now than in the future? If you look at Roswell, that's a break point. What happened right before 1947? Right there in that area, they detonated Little Boy and Big Boy, 1945. And this is where they say, what are those damn humans doing again? That's why they destroyed the third world. So we're going another repeat of what had happened in the third world. That's when the Indians were saved, or the Aborigines, or the other groups were saved. And right now, the biggest concern now is the ecosystem, because that's where, I tell people that says it was easy for me to learn the periodic chart when I was a young boy, because they only had 4 elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. Anyway, this is I'm a structural engineer, so triangle is the most stable of all structures, and so the fault suit is in a 4. This is what I tell people about fault suit. When you talk about fault suit, I don't care if it's politicians, I don't care if it's journalists, I don't care if it's all the TV stations. They're all operated in this box. So this is basically, it's a very, very fast thing. We heard about Chaco, Mesa Verde, Canyon Shade, cultures disappeared, and Athabascans arrived, which is, the Navajo Ranger. Those are the ones that went through the Bering Strait. What is very interesting about Chaco is that when I did a presentation some years back, there is absolutely no connection of the Pueblo people or the Aboriginal that at that time have any connection to the ones that disappeared. I have made some illustrations of the Chaco. They say that that's a great kiva. They did not have kivas until after 1500 AD. The great kiva is a landing port. I have argued with scientists, even some of the historians. If you look at the Chaco, and I did a presentation some time back, and it's based on, the whole layout of these pueblos are based on sacred geometry. I mean, when you talk about people making numbers and some of the mathematical functions, it's all there. And if you look at it from the sky, since the satellites went up, and now most of the stuff is from Google Earth, and so this information, it just pops out in front of you. And then between about 1540, when the Spanish invasion, and this is where the 4Gs: God, glory, gold, and greed. Spirituality and the religions were being destroyed. And this is the key of this present age, that this is where we start disappearing. I mean, the aliens started disappearing that used to come over here. And then if you well know that 15 through 1800, the death was caused by diseases brought from them. And so this is where we start going on the down, going toward down. 18 to 1900, the ecosystem was destroyed. And now I'm talking about Trail of Tears. The Navajos were rounded up, sent to other. Geronimo was sent to Florida and eventually back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And so we all know about our history. So as far as they're concerned, this is the truth. So when you look at the writings of other historians, there's now no reference to a lot of this stuff. And so 1900 to present, they became prisoners and placed on reservation, and they lose places of sky people contact. And this is where the national park started, because they found out that this was their connection, and they could do a lot of things that looked like a heresy, magical things that they did. They could call in spaceships, they could call in different gods, and so that was not good for them, so they had to get rid of them. Spirituality to the Zuni people, they were provided by in the beginning of the Fourth World. The reason I talk about the Fourth World is because there's a lot of history on it. The third and the second and the or the archaeo Aboriginal people, there's not very much information. So this is where they come in with the downloaded. See, we were downloaded. We went through a very speedy evolution, so to speak. And this is where they talk about diverse ethics, consciousness, technology, esoteric orders, and of course agricultural systems. This is why Mother Earth is very, very important to the natives. Water is very important. And those are the most that we have destroyed to this point. I mean, like right now, every second. The spiritual beings, they sent, one of the things that they did was they set up communication system. If you look at the previous slide about the transceivers, they had to have some type of communication system. Because when they come over here, they leave, then they have to have some type of a communications. It's just like a cell phone. So then they provided communication systems, and this is where the prayers, the rituals come in, and the ceremonies. One of the things that a lot of people do not do today is they don't communicate. They don't laugh. Aliens are some of the most funniest tricksters that you can ever find. They play games with you all the time. That's because they want you to be happy. And the spiritual beings through their emissary group, which we commonly call the star people. There's many, we can call them ETs, we can call them EBs, but they're basically the emissaries, because the big boys are up there in their huge flying saucers, or their whole, I mean, some of them, I talked to a lot of different people, the late Colonel Stevens, Wendell Stevens, the late Bob Dean, and they inspired me to go and talk like this. And I remember when Wendell Stevens came to visit me at my house in Zuni, New Mexico, we were talking in there about the gold tablets given to the Mormon church. And behind my house on the hill, we did not know that there was a flying saucer. So the movie guys, they say, hey, there's a flying saucer out here. And I asked Wendell, I said, there's a flying saucer. He said, what were they doing? you know, he's just nonchalant. He said, oh, they're just listening to us. You know, there's a guy there. But so this is, they're always here, been since the beginning of time, if you want to call it, whatever that time began. And that's why it doesn't bother us, the native people, I don't care what tribe, and the Aboriginal groups, whether they be in Australia, whether it be in Africa, we all have connection with those. So this is what we talk about, Star People. I just went to a ceremony December 1. I went through all the different recitations and the prayer system. I have to do that to review that every year. And the creation or the coming of the Star People, it's a 6-hour prayer system. And it goes through all the steps. So when they said that, well, Mahooty's giving over his secrets about the Zuni, I said, all you have to do is go over there and listen. It's right there. But anyway, so remember we're talking about the watchers? They're the observers. They want to make sure that we're carrying out the doctrines. So they're like guardians, protectors, and provide warnings of future events. And I'll go through that towards of some of the things that has happened. The spirit people and practices. The American Indians are aware of planet changes. They've always had that. People conflict, deviation from religion and spirituality and consciousness. They have always told the invaders of the Indian lands, he said, please do not bother these things because we have those connections. But what do? They mine, they bulldoze, they destroy. And so there's a lot of things that are going to happen. It's already happening right now. The weather is one of them. We already knew about, or my people knew about that thousands of years ago. Okay, a lot of people, when I talk about these raw people, the only people that would be considered cooked are the human. But among the humans, there are also raw people. A good example are twins. Every tribe that I have studied, there's always the twins of every group have got those special powers. And if you look at the history of a lot of other civilizations, there's always a twin. And they're called the twin warriors, and they're also opposite because they were made from the same egg, but they have different personalities, even though they're twins, as we well know. Remember that saying about if a twin, identical twin is in New York and the other one is in Hawaii and the other one feels a pain, it's quantum mechanics, all at the same instant. Okay, there's a lot of different types of raw people that, raw people mean uncooked, that they have they're from in a multi-dimensional universe, but they're here on the planet. They can come and go, and they can disappear. And I have been on occasion involved with this. I wasn't too aware of it until I went into the medicine order. And beings include Bigfoot, we talk about the little people, orbs, ant people, flying beings, and walk-ins. Kachinas are considered as friends, and humans assume their role for ceremonial and spiritual purposes. The Kachina would be equivalent to what Christians call angels. And they're the ones that are our protectors, and we also have to be initiated into that order. And everything is a priesthood. All the beings that come into the earth space are referred to as warrior. And they always have that warrior Some of them are warriors, but they never use weapons. If you look at science fiction, when they go into it, they always carry a weapon of some sort, whether it's the laser guns like in Star Trek. And there's a lot of parallels. I studied the science fiction, and it's no different than what we have known for thousands of years. Okay, Kachina, the definition is that Kachina it's also spelled Kachina or Kachina, and in Hopi Kachina, which was 1888. It's one of the Pueblo Indians, and they used to visit. See, the reason that Webster came up with this is because he didn't have the background. And one of the elaborately masked Kachina impersonators dance at agricultural ceremonies. If you go to the Pueblos of Zuni, Hopi today, a lot of them are open to the public. And Zuni is still open, but you know, they see a lot of that doll, they say Kachina dolls. That became an economic thing way back in right when this railroad went through Grand Canyon. And because people were always starving, so they had to come up with something. It's actually a spiritual being that they sold to supplement their needs. But even then, they still, when they make them, they still give the spirit to them. So whoever buys it, and it's very difficult nowadays because there's a whole bunch of stuff that's coming in from overseas that they say that it's Kachinas, but they're not. So this is, and they're called Coco. And we all go through initiation to become a Kachina. They call it a cult, but it is a priesthood. And they're guardians, spiritual messengers. My late father was a Kachina messenger since 1947. He passed away in 2010. And so he's the one that taught me and told me about how they became and what their purpose was. So this is why when people think that I'm just making it up, I have a lot of sources, because being a scientist and an analyst, I have to know, because that's where I get into trouble a lot of times. I really have to know. So they're star beings, a lot of them are, but the domain is the sky and sacred springs, inner world. A lot of people here know Linda Moulton now, cow or whatever. And she was talking about the inner world on Coast to Coast one night. It's all made out of molten iron and all that. And unfortunately, she hasn't had a chance to talk to any of us that are very aware of these things. But there is an inner world. And this is where Bigfoot, the little people, come back and forth in there. And this is where they get the binary sun, like we have a binary sun. So there's a lot of things that I did not get this from a science book. It was taught when we still had teaching in our ways. And they were etheric beings, and their primary purpose is to bring rain, seeds, and all things for survival. They have songs, dances, entertainment, and blessings with happiness. Everything in the songs, it's about love. Love with each other, love with Mother Earth, and love with all the people on the planet and all the people in the universe. This is one thing that a lot of people do not understand, and there's a lot of laughter. And this is what this whole society is breaking down, because they have deviated from that. We're now all false people because we believe something else. And I cannot belong to any group because of my teachings. So this is why when I go out to these conferences, I teach them the basics. It doesn't have to be hard. Remember that old talk about the KISS method? The biggest event Zuni America is the annual Chalako ceremony. If you look at these are actually, they got no arms, and they're tall, and if you look at them in the front, there's like if you remember the capsules of the Apollo series, you know, it's got that triangle. Yeah. You can, I have so much imagination sometimes, but you can look at that, and this is we still do this every year. And these are not, you know, these are not regular Kachinas because they have no arms. And I talked to a lot of aeronautical engineers. The basic things that the pitch, the yaw, and the roll are incorporated into this thing. There's two pilots, a pilot and a co-pilot. And this is ground control. If you want to look at NASA, and they got communication system, it's like Morse code. When they're talking to each other, and there's 6 of them, all the direction. When they talk to each other, each one is like a Morse code. Each kiva, and they're from different directions, and they're different colors. And so when they're over there, they're clap, 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 and pretty soon you say, he doesn't clap like this. Then my dad told me that because they're different. They come from different parts of the universe. But their communication system is the same, by the clap, clap, clap. So then you know, this is one of the biggest ceremonies that you probably heard about. And this is a rain dance. This is 1800s. We have clowns in both these are what we call the mudheads. These are the Kachina clowns. They're spiritual clowns. And then in front of us in the plaza, these are children of incest. And so this is why they're all adult. They're very super, but they're adult-minded. You know, they get wasted away after the truth. So this is a way to tell us that you do not have sex with your sister. So it's right there, everything is open. So this is a rain dance, and this is the one that is performed in all Pueblo tribe. Usually they sing singing the song of the Zuni. You go to Hopi, they sing Zuni songs. You go to Zuni, they sing Hopi songs, Kiri songs. All our languages are incorporated, depending on which order. Here's the other part of that system. This is what we call the Longhorn, is the chief. And here's his guards. And here's his exo. Remember in the military system, the captain of the ship never carries out the executions. Is what they call it, the second in command, is the one that carries out. This is the guy that hires and fires. This guy is the king type thing. So if you look at the military system, whether it's in the old system or in the science fiction series, they're the same. I studied military science, and they just say, wow, man, we got the same system. You look at this, they got weapons. This is a bow. See this one here, when they go to war, they flip this over and it becomes a quiver. For ceremony, they put it on the side and they become a ceremonial object, even though the arrows are in there. So this is so many detailed information. This is what we call the Pathfinder. If you took, he's the first one in. See, they're way behind here. This is usually a small boy. If you took just this part and take the antenna off and you suspend it in there, what does it look like? An observer UFO. He's the first one that goes in, comes back out, and then goes back to the command ship. This is exactly the role of this, and he carries a brand. There are so many parallels. This is one thing that I put together. This is Saturn V rocket. And this is the Shalako. Again, there's parallels in ancient technology and modern technology. And I've written a lot of stuff about these things. Here's the pilots. You know, this one up here, they got a little antenna that sticks out here. This is a Class A uniform, some of those that you were in the military, and this is like in fatigues. When they get inside of the Kachina, this is what they look like. They strip themselves of all their Class A uniform, they go into their fatigues or flight suits. And so this is just one facet of it. Okay, here's one thing that what we call orbs. This is the one it's a Kachina that's called the Kasawani, which means that it's a mist that flies through the air. And he said that this is in 1800s, where it's published in 1929. And this is a ethnologist. He says that what's funny is that he said that he's long, shiny, and like an icicle. That reminds you of the UFOs that you see that are like a tube. So we represented them by Kachina. So that's basically the background on Kachina. Now we're talking about on the raw people. I was up in Chihuahua, Washington last year in, September, Labor Day weekend. And so this is the presentation that I made. Everywhere, especially in the United States, in every state, there's a Bigfoot. And we have known about them for a long, long time. And one of our medicine songs, I asked him when I was still a rookie, I said, what song was that? That is very low frequency. And the way I looked at it is because I read a lot of comic books. This guy is like the Hulk. You know, the other guys, the other medicine people, you know, when they said, okay, man, we got a real bad things caused by the witchcraft people, we need somebody huge. So they sing the song for the Bigfoot because he's also medicine. He said, so what is a Sasquatch? We said, Sasquatch is a star elder. Is he an animal? Is he a spirit? Is he an alien? Or is he an illusion? One of the things that I kind of, maybe I'm prejudiced, is that, you know, I came up with this because I see those alien, a Bigfoot, they want to go kill a Bigfoot. And some of those are so ridiculous. And they say, oh, we got one in the cage, and they go back there, it's gone. They never got a Bigfoot. It's all lies. So, see, he belongs to the raw people family. Multi-dimensional being can come. You know of where they would follow a Bigfoot in the snow, and all of a sudden, right in the middle of the snow, there's no more tracks. Or they'll come in now with digital cameras. This is really interesting. I have seen a lot of pictures of Bigfoot. We were up in Chihuahua, Washington last year, and we saw a lot of them looking out of the guy by the name of Kiwani Lasteritis puts on the meeting. When they took a picture of him and his wife, they were more concerned about it because they forgot to move the trash can away when they were taking the picture, and he was all hot and bothered. And the guys that took the pictures said, I wouldn't even worry about the trash can. Look in the forest way over there. And way back there in the forest is a Bigfoot looking at them. But he was more concerned about, what's that saying called? Can't see the forest for the trees or whatever, you know. So this is the domain, the Zuni People family, he's part of that group. Remember when he showed that, when Daryl showed that slide, the UFO, the ant people, what do you call it, the insectoid, praying mantis, the mantis, okay, there. And he's like the Kokopali. Kokopali has a range from clear down in Peru, clear up to, at that time it was the ice cap. And we have hundreds of photographs of Kokopali. And we do a lot of research on that. And we got pictures of those. A friend of mine, so he's a historical legend like Kokopali. He's been everywhere. He said, here's where I was talking about that medicine man connection. When we need his help, I mean, that guy, nobody can mess with him. He's just like Daryl's partner over there. So this, see, the domain of Sasquatch, like I say, is everywhere. So the coexistence of Homo sapiens sapien and Sasquatch, the reason that's happening is that the humans think that they're higher than any other animal on the planet. Actually, the human being is the dumbest. I mean, you know, in terms of your scale, because we don't have those other qualities that they have. And so Sasquatch's milieu, everywhere. And they can be anywhere. We were up at in Denver in November. I work with a group called Galactic Collective. And when we were up there at Washington, I made a pair of sticks for the Sasquatch people. They picked it up about 2 weeks later. The guy, they didn't know that we did this because Diné medicine man, Navajo medicine man, and Pueblo and myself, I made the prayer sticks for them. And they picked it up, and what they did was I should have gotten the camera, what they did was that they took those prayer sticks that I made from, that's how we do exchange. They actually took the rocks, different colored rocks, and it's about, maybe about the width of this screen here. They actually made a replica of what the prayer sticks were using stones, different colored stones to match the feathers, the color of the feathers. So so they came to us in Denver in November, and it had snowed the day before, and the people that I work with, they can talk to the Sasquatch. And when I was standing there, we were going through our heart circle. We have a heart circle. And I started laughing because I was sort of like maybe in a trance. And the roof was, the room was about this high. And I looked up, and there was a whole bunch of Sasquatch people. And I started laughing at this guy. I said, how the hell did you get in here? And he was clear to the ceiling. Wow. And he was clear to the ceiling, so they have been, so they can appear anywhere. And what was very interesting is that after that, we walked out to the parking lot, and there was about, I'd say, about 2 feet in diameter. There was a heart that they put on the parking lot. It was like they went over there and put a heart on there, and they watered it. And the reason, I did not know this, but the Navajo medicine man that we work with, he found out that they like peanut butter cups, Reese's peanut butter cups. When we were up in Washington, we thought that because there's Sasquatch people, they would take apples and natural plants. They left that alone. They wanted the candy. And so they were at my house a week and a half ago. So he brought those over there, and he couldn't get the big peanut butter cups, so he put them in my yard over there, and he gave him chocolate bars, Hershey bars, and they only took 2 of them, but they were not Reese's peanut butter cups. But they ate them anyway, and then we came back and they actually ate the chocolate. So they love chocolate. So this is, you know, when we talk about this, they think we're making this up. I mean, we have proof of that. I said, they're raw people, and they're paranormal supernatural entities, and we call it the man-beast. See, one of the reasons that this happened is because of the overpopulation of people and massive destruction of the wilderness. They're really, really just like, they don't know what to do. I mean, they can do a lot of damage. And of course, the water, they have a negative effect. And the environment is drastically changing, so their food sources are becoming limited. They're hunting and their freedom. And they haven't, the pot hunters, they gotta have their things for their collection, so they hunt them. They'll never kill them, because you cannot kill something that is so multidimensional. And so I've had many experiences. I have a grandson. He's bigger than me. And they were turkey hunted about 3 years ago in Arizona. And you know how kids are when they drink beer and they want to see who can burp, you know, the loudest. So he was going to scare his cousins. But about 5 o'clock in the morning, so he went out there and he went to take a leak, and so he thought that he put a fast one on them. So they had drinking beer all night, of course, and so he did that, and his cousins never woke up. Well, the Bigfoot answered him, and that's when they woke up. I mean, way over there, about, I don't know, 5 miles away. I mean, I've heard them, and it's just like, I mean, there's no noise like that ever that I have. And I'm an outdoors guy. And so what they did was, they're young kids. I mean, you know, they're in their 18, 20-year-olds. They loaded their truck up and they went back home. They were at 7 o'clock in the morning. And Dad went, "What are you guys doing here?" And then he went to talk about it. And I had one experience. I was camping out there above Sandia. I'm in Sandia Labs. The Sled Indian Reservation borders it on the Manzano Mountains. And what I did was I put my tent in his walk when he goes on that ridge. And then I heard him before the sun went down, way over there, and I was still married at that time. My wife said, "What the heck was that?" I didn't want to scare her. I said, "Oh, that's just an elk." Well, that elk became something fierce about 11 o'clock at night. And she was kicking me, and she was hitting me on the side. "Quit snoring, you're snoring again." I said, "I don't know." I said, "I'm hearing it too." I think what happened was that he was standing on, you know, why did they put their tent in my walkway here? And he was all grunting and everything else. And then they took a sapling, it was maybe about this high. It was about like that. He took that sapling and hit our tent. I mean, that really is. So we got out and we left. We just threw everything. So I've had a lot of experiences with it. And in Zuni, New Mexico, we've had a lot of experiences with Sasquatch because we know about them and we leave them alone. So this is basically what the little Sasquatch information. They have to have exclusives, right? Be the only one to know about Bigfoot, Sarbies, angel spirit. So they set traps, and like it's just like, we're gonna go save the Hopi. The Hopi don't need to be saved; they've existed for millions of years. So I asked them, just respect them. But they have been with the natives for a long time. We know all about them in our traditional ways. Now this is another area that is part of our history, petroglyphs. Petroglyphs are records etched in stone by the ancient people showing the events seen by them. That's our library, the knowledge library. It's sort of like the cuneiform tablets, sort of like the other information that has been stolen and put in the fifth layer under the Vatican or the Smithsonian and many universities. They include sky events, their journeys, animals, human events, supernatural beings, mythical gods, and space beings. This is not somebody that made this up. These are in high places. They're all over Southwest. The reason that you can see these things is that they set up the petroglyphs parks by the Park Service and other groups that they would not show these things because it's the government-run facilities. There's so many panels out there that we have a tour that we do every year, and you have to. I cannot go in those canyons anymore because it is very, very deep. So we take ladders and ropes and whatever to get down there. So they're basically of Kokopali, ETs, the stars, flying crafts, Bigfoot, giants, and unknown information. And I'll just go through a bunch of them. This is about 15 minutes from my house in Zuni. This is a ET. When I first went out there, I was working with ancient aliens at that time. I did not see this because it was a different time of year and different day. And when I went out there the second time, it was right there where we passed it. So that's, and here's one that's in right, well, I'd say about 20 miles from my house in Zuni. See here's a Kokopelli guy. The beings that used to come from the sky, they used to come down upside down. And this is why the kivas were made like that. And this one is, somebody told me, they said, no, that's not a UFO, that's San Francisco Peaks that Flagstaff, Arizona. I said, no, we don't have any history of that. But we do have history of that. This whole canyon's got at least 1,000 petroglyphs. It'll take you about, we were out there, you know, that he was talking about Chief Golden Light Eagle. We were out there for a whole week. I think we only got about maybe 3%. And we're still putting that together. Here's another, see, this is Bigfoot. And we have, this is in the same canyon. And we found a cave in there that was a Bigfoot cave. It had filled up with sand. And you walk in there and it's inside of that little crack in the wall. I mean, it's about yay high, but we had to crawl in there because the silt and the sand built up. We finally got in there and it's a big cavern. And that's why this picture, you go around here and that's where he's at. You look at all these types of things, and these are not damaged. There's more of that. See, these are the giants, and the different. See, a lot of these are. You know, the American Indians domesticated the turkey, and there's actually a turkey clan also. So these are all over the place. All the clan system. See, there's another Bigfoot over there. See, you can tell after a while you became so, you learned that you can immediately say, oh yeah, there's Bigfoot, or giant. This is everywhere. When we did a documentary on the Sequel Canyon. I don't know if you guys seen it. Okay. So I'm gonna have to go through here because I don't have very much time. And this is a UFO flying, and these talking to them. See these guys? They're talking to these giant people. So I had a encounter. You can pick that up on the MUFON that I did in September of last year. Just go on MUFON Phoenix, and you'll see the whole story on that one. And this is basically what happened. And what happened is that, you know, they come and tell us what is going to happen in the future, and this is what happened at home. And so this was basically because they built that power plant in St. John's, their home of the Kachina, and then Kiva groups, they destroyed a lot of the whole system when we went into a constitutional form of government forced by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the town is so broken up now, and they incorporated a secular government, and we're all spiritual people. So secular government is forced upon by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. But anyways, there are very few believers about UFOs or multidimensional, you know, Sarpi, Bigfoot. Have been brainwashed for centuries by politicians, New Age shaman, fake news, etc. Believe in yourself. And remember that cartoon where I think his name was Tuda the turtle? He used to say, "Be what you is and not what you is not." I remember that when I was a kid, so I had to keep that in my mind all the time. So because when I lied, I used to get my ass kicked. And also I tell people that's why I'm divorced 4 times. Anyway, this was my dad. He never admitted it. See, this here again is Chris O'Brien again. He's the one that wrote about the St. Louis Valley, and his mouth was like this. So anyway, this is I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Oh, but see that this is what's going on right now, and we're increased population. That's what's happening right now, and so the odor, that's going to be methane gas. But anyway, I'll be tonight. Some people have auras. I got a chili stream. This guy is an ancient alien. Thank you.